All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to tackle what looks like a major, head-scratching contradiction from one of the biggest names in Christian history, the Apostle Paul. You see, he gives two totally different sets of advice about how Christians should deal with the government and its courts. And our mission today is to figure out what on earth is going on. And here it is, laid out plain and simple. In his letter to the Romans, Paul says pretty clearly, be subject to the governing authorities, obey the law. This is a huge deal in Christian thinking. But then you flip over to his letter to the church in Corinth, and he says, dare any of you, take it before the ungodly for judgment. He sounds almost angry. So which is it? Do we submit or do we stay away? That is the puzzle we are here to solve. So to get to the bottom of this, we have to do more than just read the words on the page. We actually have to become historical detectives. We need to step back in time into the world of first century Corinth. Because the answer isn't just about theology. It's buried in the history, the culture, and the kind of justice you could actually expect to find there. And that brings us to, well, the scene of the crime, you could say, Roman Corinth. And the very first clue is realizing that in the Roman Empire, not all courts were created equal. Understanding that difference is the key that unlocks this whole mystery. Okay, so check this out. The Romans basically had two kinds of courts. On one side, you had the big, state-controlled criminal courts. These guys handled the major stuff, treason, murder, things that threatened the empire itself. When Paul writes in Romans to obey the government, he's talking about this system. But that's not what he's talking about in his letter to the Corinthians. He's talking about something totally different, the local civil courts. And here is the absolute crucial piece of the puzzle. The local civil courts in a city like Corinth, they weren't really about finding truth or getting justice. The whole system was a game, and it was a game with a seriously stacked deck, completely rigged to make sure the rich and powerful always came out on top. So let's break down just how rigged this game was. First up, the judges. Who got to decide the cases? Well, only people from the elite upper class. That's it. An ordinary person had zero chance of ever becoming a judge. So right from the get-go, all the power is concentrated at the very top. But it gets worse. It wasn't just the judges. What about the jurors? The people who would actually, decide your fate. They were also chosen based on how much money they had. Now, you could imagine, if you're a juror and the guy on trial is your rich benefactor who you depend on for business, how are you going to vote? The whole thing was based on who you knew and who you were afraid of. And here it is. This is the final nail in the coffin for any idea of fairness. If you were a regular person, a person of lower status, you legally could not sue someone of a higher status. The law just didn't allow it. The system was designed so that power only flowed one way, from the top down. This wasn't a justice system. It was a system designed to keep the powerful in power. So if these courts weren't about getting justice, what were they about? Well, to get that, you have to understand the culture. In Roman Corinth, the most valuable thing you could possibly have wasn't money. It was honor. It was your social standing, your reputation. And the absolute worst thing that could ever happen to you was being publicly shamed. Losing face was everything. And this obsession with honor and shame is what turned the civil courts into a battlefield for very specific and very nasty type of legal warfare. It even had a name, vexatious litigation. And that definition really says it all, doesn't it? Vexatious litigation was basically weaponizing the court system. You didn't sue someone to prove you were right and they were wrong, no. You sued them to publicly drag their name through the mud and destroy their reputation. This quote just nails it. Winning had almost nothing to do with the facts of the case. It was all about vicious personal attacks. You won by convincing everyone watching that your opponent was a terrible person, a liar, a cheat, someone completely unworthy of any honor. It was basically a public mudslinging contest with a judge. So forget about justice. The real goals were all about power. It was a chance to slander your enemy, to strip them of their dignity, and to win by any means necessary. And the thing that absolutely horrified Paul was that Christians in the Corinthian church were doing this to each other. They were dragging their own brothers and sisters into this toxic arena just to publicly shame them. So Paul's response to all of this is honestly just brilliant. He doesn't just give them a new rule. He uses their own twisted values, their obsession with honor and shame and status, to show them just how ridiculous their behavior really is. So here's his logic, and it's dripping with sarcasm. He says,
Okay, step 1, you're taking each other to these corrupt courts. Step 2, you're using public shame to win. So here's my solution, and this is the amazing part. Are there no wise people in the church to judge? Fine. You'd be better off finding the person with the least status in the entire church and letting them decide your case. He just completely demolishes their entire status-obsessed worldview.
And then he delivers the final knockout punch. In a culture where public shame was the ultimate fear, Paul looks them right in the eye and says, "I say this to your shame." For that audience, those were devastating words. He's telling them that in their quest to win honor in the world's eyes, they've actually brought the deepest possible shame on themselves in God's eyes. Okay, so what does all this mean for us today? What does this ancient argument about a corrupt court system have to do with our modern world? Well, the key, as it so often is realizing that context is everything. When you put these two worlds side by side, it's just night and day. The Roman court's goal was public shame and victory, and the method was all about status and power. But the community Paul was calling them to be was supposed to have a totally different goal: reconciliation and wisdom. They were playing two completely different games by two completely different sets of rules. And this is exactly why you can't just take Paul's words and slap them onto every situation today as a blanket ban on going to court. For one, he was talking about a very specific, corrupt system of vexatious litigation. Plus, our legal systems today, for all their flaws, are at least supposed to be based on law, not on your social status. And frankly, a lot of the time, we don't even have a choice, like when you have to deal with an insurance company after a car accident. So the real takeaway, the timeless principle here, isn't a simple rule like Christians should never go to court. It's about something much deeper. It's about how a community of people who share a faith should handle their own conflicts. Paul's point is that the goal should always be reconciliation, not public victory. It should be about wisdom, not about winning a power play. Which brings us to this final thought. That big contradiction we started with, it just evaporates once we understand the world Paul was actually speaking into. It's a powerful reminder that context is king, and it leaves us with a pretty important question. How can we ever hope to apply ancient wisdom to our lives if we don't first do the work to understand the ancient world it came from?